A woman's elegant leg is revealed through a slit in her black lace dress as she walks, the click of her purple heel echoing on the stone. Her piercing purple eyes reflect a past where the world was too harsh to welcome another bastard. Clack. Striding with determination, she reveals that to cope with her lonely life, she built a castle. Now a poised and beautiful blonde woman, she looks off with a serene yet powerful gaze. Then, one day, holding a bouquet of red roses, a pop of fate changes everything. Surrounded by countless bouquets, she stands as the center of attention, a queen among flowers. 4 men present their offerings: Damien, the nervous butler of House Epain, and Shion, the former knight now enslaved. Next is Volition, a mysterious demon with a sly grin and a dangerous scar across his eye. The 4th suitor is a handsome blonde man with unsettling, glowing yellow eyes that seem to pierce right through you. The camera pans down over the sea of flowers, a vibrant testament to her many choices. And just like that, her life takes a precipitous turn as a pair of hands presents her with a ring, opening a brand new chapter. She looks down at the open ring box, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. With a sparkle, she delicately picks up the brilliant diamond ring. She holds the ring, a symbol of her future, a look of quiet triumph on her face. But before Laura J. Epping, she was a noblewoman. She was an outcast from a family that never wanted her. She grew up in the desolate slums, abandoned at birth by her parents. Scratch. A small hand draws in the dirt, a single musical note floating above. A man's voice suddenly calls out, identifying the small, ragged girl as Laura J. She looks up, startled, asking who he is, and he introduces himself as Count Eponine. The tall, imposing count looms over her, delivering a life-shattering revelation. I am your father. As a little girl, Laura J. takes his gloved hand, believing she has finally found a family. And so she became the illegitimate daughter of the Eponines, led through grand gates to a new life. Stepping inside the mansion, the little girl is completely overwhelmed, whispering that the place is huge. Her father coldly instructs her to say hello to her new family. He then introduces them as her mother and brothers. But her new family, a stern-faced woman and 2 scowling boys, loom over her with utter contempt, shunning her from the start. Cling! Terrified, Laura clutches her father's leg, whispering that she's scared. She glances up at them, stammering, completely intimidated by their hostile glares. Thump! She flinches away from her father, who offers no comfort or protection from the cold reception. Frozen in fear, she can only stare into the darkness as sweat drips down her face. She bows her head and timidly introduces herself as Laura J. With a desperate tug on her ragged clothes, she silently wishes she could go back. The whispering maids and their cruel stares were a crushing weight, draining the very life out of little Laura. The sun sets on the magnificent Apennine estate, a beautiful but cold prison. The Countess sips her tea, speaking Laura J.'s name with undisguised disdain. Laura fidgets nervously, and the Countess immediately snaps at her for her untied shoes and poor manners. Laura's apology is cut short as the Countess forbids her from speaking, while her new brothers giggle and snicker in the background. Psst, the Countess sneers, declaring that Laura's humble origins are impossible to hide as the girl stands alone and shamed. As Laura drags her feet through the ornate hall, a maid pushing a cart exclaims in surprise. The maid puts on a warm, friendly smile, kindly addressing her as "my lady." Laura flinches, expecting cruelty, but the maid just smiles wider, announcing that it's time for dinner. But the smile was a lie. With a sinister giggle, the maid presents a bowl of slop, cruelly warning her not to waste it. Weep. The untouched, miserable meal sits on the floor as she begins to sob. She cries alone, curled up on the floor, tormented by every single person in the Count's household. A glance at her tear-streaked face reveals the painful truth. Little Laura grew up completely alone. The family portrait reflects her isolation. She's a ghost tacked onto the side, never truly a part of the family. Amidst a flutter of white butterflies, the painful truth remains. She was always alone. But now she is Laura J. Epine of House Epine, no longer a victim, but a woman of formidable power. In order to survive, Laura changed. She now coldly interrogates a trembling maid who begs to know what she did wrong. Splash. It's not my job to tell you how to do yours, Laura says with ice in her voice, pouring red wine over the terrified maid's head. The tables have officially turned. But this change was not for the better. With the roll of the bottle, Laura complains about the good wine she just wasted on the crying maid. Night falls on the grand, imposing mansion, its windows glowing like lonely eyes in the dark. Toss. Now a grown woman, Laura J. cruelly discards a servant's offering as the cycle of abuse continues. At dinner, her father erupts, accusing her of testing his patience. From behind her fan, the Countess sighs with disdain, telling them to just leave her be. Her family stands in judgment, as the Countess thinks to herself that Laura simply cannot control her wicked nature. Yet, Laura never blamed them. Instead, a wicked grin spreads across her face as she lets out a dark little laugh. She despised her humble origins, and one day, she discovered something that would change everything. Her brother embraces his fiancée, a commoner, telling her he loves her no matter where she came from, as Laura watches from the shadows. Oh, that's just great, she thinks with a chilling smile, marking the beginning of her own demise. The hand with sinister markings reaches across a dark altar, her brother's love fanning the flames of her jealousy. She turned to witchcraft, her corruption staining the family portrait, until, in a bloody slash, Laura J. became an utter villainess and met a miserable fate. The handsome blonde man with glowing yellow eyes coldly pulls his blood-soaked sword from her body. Her lifeless hand, covered in dark markings, lies in a pool of blood, marking the tragic end of Laura J. But in another world, a blonde woman reads this story and yawns, completely bored by the cliched plot. Through a swirl of magic, a modern woman is summoned from her world into the pages of the book. Waking up as Laura, she realizes this is the money with no work deal she was offered, and feels fine with it, as she was never attached to her old life. With newfound determination in her eyes, she vows to survive and not die like the original Laura. Ha ha ha, she laughs with glee, planning to live happily ever after as a fabulously rich, unemployed lady. But as she daydreams, a man's voice suddenly shouts, "Laura J," and she flinches, snapped back to reality. Seething with rage, a brown-haired man clutching a scroll fumes that it's all her fault. He confronts her, demanding to know who she is and blaming her for firing a woman named Anna. "Crumple, I will avenge Anna," he roars, crushing a magic scroll in his hand. He lunges, screaming that he's going to kill her, leaving the new Laura stunned and wondering who on earth Anna is. Clench, he grips the scroll tightly, eyes burning with hatred as he repeats his vow to kill the witch. She flinches away, her mind racing as she thinks she needs to stall for time.
In a burst of panic, she wants to scream that they've got the wrong person. She's not Laura.
A golden hourglass with shimmering purple sand marks a pivotal moment in time.
Reaching out, she touches her reflection in a mirror, seeing her new face for the first time.
Surrounded by a cascade of flowers, she stares in wonder at her beautiful new appearance, asking, "Is this me?" She decides then and there to use Laura's looks and wealth to live a happy life. But her grand plans hit a snag. A narrator reveals she was wrong because Laura's crappy personality had already made enemies. Sniffle. The man grabs her arm, crying that Anna hasn't left her bed since being fired and that she ruined their wedding, while she internally insists it wasn't her. He demands she say something, but she realizes she's trapped with him blocking the only exit. Glance. Her eyes dart to a nearby candlestick as a potential weapon, but he screams at her not to move.
Rip, she grabs the magic scroll from his hands and tears it in two, declaring she's ending this now.
Grab. She snatches the candlestick, telling herself she has to calm down and save herself because no one else will. Rustle. Thinking fast, she turns to him and asks if he's sure his violent revenge is what Anna truly wants. Halt. Her question stops him in his tracks, and she tells him to stop now as the scroll burns in his hands. Toss. Apologizing in advance, she hurls the heavy candlestick right at him. Peek. She cracks one eye open, hesitantly asking what happened. A striking amber eye appears, and a calm voice asks, "Are you okay, Lady Laura?" Grasp. Ugh. A handsome, silver-haired butler has pinned her attacker to the floor, apologizing for his late arrival. She can't quite place who he is. Her first coherent thought isn't about the danger, but simply, he is gorgeous. He looks up at her, his piercing yellow eyes framed by a flurry of purple petals. As she dazedly rises to her feet, he calls out to her, "My lady?" Step. Step. He confidently walks toward her. Standing before her, the tall butler formally addresses her as Lady Laura. Tap. He gently touches her chin to check for injuries, asking again if she's sure she's not hurt. She's flustered by the intimate gesture, wondering if he's Laura's boyfriend, just as two other men rush in asking Mr. Damien what's going on. The name clicks. Oh, that's right, she thinks. He's Damien the butler. Well, that was an awkward first impression. Damien the butler's eyes narrow as he declares the man was about to attack Lady Laura and orders him to be interrogated. Scuffle. Ugh. The guards roughly haul her attacker away as he struggles on the floor. As they drag him out, Laura watches with a thoughtful expression, thinking something about the situation feels weird. The guards glance back at her with disdain. It's clear what everyone in this house thinks of her. Damien steps closer, telling her he needs to advise her on something. About what? She asks, annoyed. He replies, about treating people with respect. He looks her in the eye, reminding her that servants are people too, and that she should be more respectful. He also warns her not to dismiss her bodyguards, as they are there to protect her in situations just like this one. She's taken aback, realizing he sounds genuinely concerned and isn't hostile like everyone else. As he starts to explain why she needs them, she surprises him by cutting him off and simply agreeing. Swish! He's completely stunned by her easy compliance, asking if she's serious. Still in shock, he asks if she's all right. She wonders why he's so surprised, and he retorts, how could I not be? He thinks to himself that this is hardly her usual behavior. A flashback shows the villainous Laura asking if he'd rather she act normal. Ahem. Breaking the awkward silence, Damien says that since she seems okay, he'll go reassign the guards. He tells her to rest well, adding a pointed comment about how rest makes people more tolerant. She smirks, thinking, "Tolerant, you say?" As a final parting shot, he tells her to be nice to the new maid and not fire her this time. "Enough," she snaps. "I heard you." Tap. She brings a hand to her chin, lost in thought for a moment. A brilliant, playful smile spreads across her face as she looks at the butler. Tap. She playfully taps his chin, calling it payback for the little pat earlier, leaving him completely flustered. Twirl. Turning on her heel, she tells him she's tired and that he should fix the door he smashed, leaving him speechless. Ponder. Alone now, she reflects that this new life doesn't seem so bad, but something still feels off. She worries about another violent incident, as a memory surfaces of a terrified maid begging for forgiveness. In the memory, Laura had calmly said she just wanted to know the maid's name. But now the new Laura thinks, "I'm the one who wants to cry." Her new maid trembles at her feet, and Laura looks down with an exasperated, arms-crossed stance. "Calm down," she says gently, extending a hand. "I'm not trying to punish you. I just need to know your name." The maid, stunned, takes her hand and introduces herself as Irina. Laura gives her a warm, reassuring smile as she holds her hand. Bam! Suddenly, the door is thrown open, interrupting the tender moment. A man's voice booms. "Laura J., are you tormenting your maid again?" causing Irina to jump in fear. It's a handsome, dark-haired man with piercing golden eyes, and he looks absolutely furious. Dressed impeccably in a suit and red cravat, he's clearly another noble. Laura is visibly pissed at the interruption, while poor Irina nervously stammers, sir?" A flash of the original Laura's memories reveals that her most vivid recollections were of this man, her family. The memories continue to flood in, appearing like pages from this storybook she read. She remembers the family crest and his identity as the heir of the Epine family.
And last but not least, a chilling memory of a woman ensnared by thorns, a victim of Laura's dark magic.
He's finally identified, Carlix Epine, the heir of House Epine. According to Laura's memories, Carlix was kind to all the servants, but he was especially cruel to her. The new Laura knows the original would have let her ego explode into a furious rage at this accusation. But with a self-satisfied smirk, she thinks, "I'm not her," and faces him coolly. Sigh. She feigns delicacy, reminding Carlix that while she's his sister, she's also a lady, and barging in is highly improper. He scoffs, saying he knows she torments the servants, and that announcing his visits would only give her time to hide her cruelty. Chuckle. With a coy smile, she asks, "Me, tormenting my servants? Are you sure about that?" He's not in the mood for her games, and says he's not here to argue. He calls her outrageous for denying her actions, but she challenges him to prove it, promising to be held accountable if he's right, and vice versa. Thump! The terrified maid Irina panics, wondering if they're fighting because of her. A small note helpfully clarifies, nope. The scene flashes back to a key moment from the original story, a wedding that stuck in Laura's fragmented memory. Laura had always believed her family shunned her for being a commoner, only to discover her brother was marrying one, filling her with rage. She despised her brother's fiancé for being loved despite her status, and that rage became a curse that destroyed them all. There was, however, one thing worth remembering as the new Laura calmly pours herself some tea. Snap. In her memory, as Carlix lay dying under her curse, a final piece of the puzzle falls into place. The new Laura realizes the original was in anguish, denying her actions as Carlix died, and knows she needs to fill the gaps in this fragmented memory to understand what really happened. With a confident smirk, she challenges Carlix, suggesting that if he's so sure she tormented her maid, he should just ask the girl herself. Turning to the nervous maid, she puts her on the spot, asking directly, "Tell us, did I make you kneel?" Lean. Carlix leans in protectively toward Irina, urging her not to be afraid and promising to protect her. Laura is not amused. Irina stuns Carlix by taking the blame, admitting she misunderstood and caused trouble based on rumors she'd heard about the lady. Bow. The maid bows deeply, insisting that the lady was kind enough to help her stand and did nothing wrong. Scoff. Laura shoots her brother a smug, triumphant look, silently asking, "See? What did I tell you?" As Irina stands there with tears in her eyes, Laura makes a mental note to remember her name. Grin. She watches her brother's humiliation with a wicked grin, wondering if she should save him from further embarrassment. Putting on a show of remorse, she admits she hasn't behaved well, but insists to Carlix that she's honestly trying to be better. Step. She calmly suggests they consider the whole thing a misunderstanding and move on. Swish. Then she dismisses him entirely, asking him to leave the room and leaving him utterly shocked. She can't believe he's still hesitating to admit his mistake, even after hearing the maid's own testimony. Defeated, Carlix apologizes for the misunderstanding, and Laura cheerfully accepts, calling him brother, while Irina looks on, baffled. Glint. Before leaving, he gives her a stern warning not to expect his silence if he ever hears she's mistreating servants again. Slam. He slams the door on his way out, and she just stares, thinking, did he just slam that door at me? Toss. She flicks her hair, deciding she has no intention of entertaining his immaturity. Settling the original Laura's scores isn't her problem. A few days later, she's living her best life, lounging in bed while Irina serves her a delicious tray of pastries.
Chump, hooray to my second life, she thinks, happily munching on a treat and loving every second of her luxurious new reality.
She realizes her path to easy living is simple. If she wants to keep mooching off the count, all she has to do is avoid forbidden spells. That's so easy, she beams. I'm a lucky duck. Clatter. The mood shifts drastically at family dinner, which she narrates was a complete nightmare where everyone ignored her and judged her clothes. Her mother calls her dress vulgar, complaining it can't hide her filthy origins, and the new Laura realizes with horror that the original endured this constant scrutiny for years. Seated all alone at the far end of a long table, she finally understands why the original Laura completely broke down. Dab. She gently dabs her lips, thinking the real Laura probably bent over backward just to get a scrap of her family's attention. Clang! But she's not the real Laura, and she makes it known by dropping her cutlery with a loud, disruptive clatter. Her mother immediately scolds her, demanding to know what she's doing and ordering her to sit down. Standing defiantly, Laura announces she won't sit on needles any longer just so they can freely discuss her behind her back. Rattle. Her younger brother is shocked, but the man at the head of the table coolly grants her permission to leave. With a slight smile, she wishes them a nice dinner and turns to walk away. Step, step. As she leaves, she thinks to herself how foolish the original Laura was for putting up with this. Swish, but a sharp voice cuts through the air. "Stop right there, Laura." It's Lyndall Epping, the younger son of the Count, and he looks furious. Peeved, he points an accusing finger at her, demanding she go back and apologize for disrespecting their family.
"Wince," she coolly retorts. "Why should I?" leaving him stunned by her audacity.
"You should be thanking me," she says, brushing past him as she explains she left so they could enjoy their dinner in peace. He's not having it and grabs her wrist to stop her. Getting in her face, he accuses her of plotting something and warns that her little tricks for attention won't work. She looks utterly exhausted by the drama, sighing, "Gosh, stop bothering me. What have I ever done?" He sneers at her, telling her to keep her distance because he can't stand the sight of her. Scoff. She finds his attitude ridiculous and thinks, "So this is how you want to play, huh?" Raise. Changing tactics, she raises their joined hands and says with mock sincerity, "Oh, brother, I'm really touched." He's just confused. Wink. She gives a dramatic wink that sends literal chills down his spine as he stammers that she's being ridiculous. "Oh, one more thing," she says, her smile turning sharp. Toss. She forcefully throws his hand off her, coldly stating she'd appreciate it if he didn't talk to her anymore, leaving him completely shell-shocked. Slam. Humiliated, he declares he has to go and practically flees, slamming the doors behind him. Flutter. From a high balcony, his frustrated scream echoes into the evening. "Laura J." Sigh. Later, completely unfazed by the family drama, she relaxes with a contented sigh in a warm, petal-strewn bath. Throb. But her peace is shattered by a piercing headache as a dark, twisted memory of the original Laura emerges, screaming a vicious curse. The vision intensifies, revealing a blood-splattered and crazed Laura with glowing pink eyes, laughing maniacally in the throes of dark magic. She reflects on how her momentary happiness was a distraction. Her family is still a nightmare, with Carlix dismissing her and Lindell bullying her at every turn. The montage of misery continues. The Countess quietly belittled her, and her own father, the Count, did absolutely nothing to protect her. Relaxing in the moonlight, she vows not to waste her second chance on petty fights with them. Her new dream is simple, a cute little house to call her own. Clench. With newfound determination, she solidifies her plan for a new life. She'd rather live in a small cabin than continue to rot with this toxic family. But her plan has a few holes. She needs money and someone to help her, and she's not sure who to trust. Then a memory surfaces of a silver-haired man who once rescued her. Eureka! She remembers his name. Damien the butler. A clear image of the handsome, golden-eyed butler comes to mind. She recalls he was the only one who stood up for the original Laura and decides she needs to make him her ally immediately. Chuckle. A single tear falls as she lets out a small laugh, amused by her own scheming. Robe draped over her shoulders, she approaches the doors with a new sense of purpose, thinking, this is going to be fun. She finds the Count and announces her presence. Without looking up, he simply orders her to sit down. Dressed in a lovely new gown, she smiles sweetly and agrees. Oh, she suddenly remembers that her good life had made her forget a crucial detail. She's in a story with a fixed, tragic ending. Shriek, a horrifying memory of a man being stabbed, floods her mind, and she panics, realizing she's doomed if she doesn't act fast. Rise! She jolts up in bed, urgently telling a cheerful Irina to bring her a pen and paper. Ponder. Pen in hand, she contemplates what an illegitimate daughter needs most to escape her family. The answer is simple and universal. Money, of course. She knows the Count is rich, but he'll never give her a dime without a good reason, preferring to keep her caged. After all, a daughter is a valuable marriage asset, but she has a trump card of her own. That trump card is the original Laura's memories, symbolized by the Death Tarot card. She remembers the original Laura's unique ability to read the future with magical cards. The cards of fate fall before her, a power she can now wield. She and the Count face off, two determined minds about to clash. At dinner, she breaks tradition by addressing him as "my lord," and he visibly flinches at the formality. Twitch, did you just call me your lord? He asks, clearly thrown off balance. A memory reveals the original Laura always called them father and mother, desperate to be part of the family. But no matter how hard she tried, the Count and Countess always saw her as the villainess. The new Laura won't repeat that mistake. She refuses to die waiting for a love that was never there. Nod, I'm not a child anymore, she explains calmly. So I believe it's appropriate to use proper titles. The Count just stares, processing this sudden, mature shift in her behavior. He takes a sip of wine and says, I see, though she can tell he's still skeptical. Clatter. Deciding she can't worry about his doubts, she sets down her fork to get to the point. With a confident smile, she prepares to drop the bomb. I want to move out, she declares, and the Count is so shocked he nearly spills his drink. He finds her request unexpected and demands a reason, to which she coolly agrees. She's surprised he's even willing to listen, but proceeds with her plan. Whoosh! She reminds him of her miserable past, saying he must be aware of the thin ice she's walked on for years. He sighs, admitting his own childish behavior played a part in what happened. She listens patiently, her expression unreadable. Grit. When she formally asks for his permission to leave, he clenches his teeth, clearly conflicted. Swesh! He refuses, insisting she's his flesh and blood, and promising to make the family treat her better. Flesh and blood? She scoffs internally. Yeah, right. After all these years of neglect. Push. Unfazed, she slides a sealed letter across the table, telling him she has a very valid reason. Her proposal isn't a plea, it's a business pitch. I want you to make an investment. Using Laura's memories, she lays out a map, explaining that the family's main trade route will soon be blocked by escalating political tensions. Grin. So, she says with a triumphant smile, you'll need to secure port access in advance. Checkmate.
The Count reads her proposal, completely stunned. He can't believe she predicted the Silk Road blockage and wonders how on earth she came up with such a plan.
She's not done yet. Her proposal also details an oak branch and a colorful stone, explaining they're materials for magic weapons whose prices will skyrocket during the war. He carefully examines the picture of the iridescent stone, mulling over her incredible foresight. But he's still a skeptic, dismissing her theory as baseless and refusing to trust her since she has zero experience in trade affairs. Fume! Dude, whose fault is that? She seethes internally, but calmly apologizes and says she's been educating herself while he wasn't paying attention. She knows he doesn't trust her, so she asks for a single chance to prove her worth. To prove it, she reveals a state secret. The Aska Empire is sending a secret envoy to the Imperial Palace to discuss maritime trade. She makes her final offer. If she's right, he accepts her proposal to move out. If she's wrong, she'll take full responsibility.
and he wants to know how. Her answer begins with a simple truth. I know you brought me into the family for a reason. A vision of her as a bride appears, solemn and ready to fulfill her duty. So I will pay my dues, she finishes, by marrying a noble who pays the highest dowry. Bang! She slams her fist on the table, cutting off his shocked protests. Holding up 3 fingers, she prepares to deliver her final, undeniable point. Her proposal, she declares, will bring him 10 times more profit than any marriage ever could. She prays he'll take the bait as he stares back, conflicted. Wave. Looking weary, he waves her off, saying he needs time to think about it. Squeeze, she thinks, barely containing her excitement. She tells him she's looking forward to his positive response. As she leaves, a pair of polished shoes stand just outside the door, someone having listened in on the entire conversation. It's Damien, the silver-haired butler, peeking around the corner and wondering, why is father talking to Laura? Haggard. Back in her room, Laura collapses, exhausted from the confrontation, but hopeful her proposal will be enough. All she wants is to escape and find peace in a happy life with a cute dog, far from anyone who hates her.
Woof! Her imagination runs wild with her dream life, though she admits a servant or two would be nice. Just then, Irina serves her tea, and Laura realizes she completely forgot to include her loyal maid in her escape plans. She reflects that since their misunderstanding was cleared up, Irina is no longer afraid or trying too hard to please her. Pleased with Irina's calm and friendly demeanor, Laura decides to move forward. In that case, she thinks, then tells Irina her plan to leave the mansion soon. A shocked Irina asks why, and Laura explains that she can't stay in a place where everyone sees her as a villainess. The two stand in her room, a heavy silence hanging between them after her confession. Fidget, Irina nervously apologizes, admitting that while she knows Laura is a good person, she's not ready to leave the mansion herself. Seeing Irina's sad face, Laura realizes it will take more time to convince her. Sniffle, drip. To lighten the mood, Laura teases her, asking if she's still scared. Irina panics, insisting she knows how kind Laura truly is. Laura smiles, reassuring her she was only joking and telling her to take her time. A grateful Irina thanks her for understanding. Slurp. Later, while Irina does her hair, Laura casually mentions she'll need servants and a house when she moves. Irina gets swept up in the details, listing off knights, maids, and a butler, while Laura groans at how much of a hassle it all sounds. Suddenly, Irina's eyes light up with an idea. She knows the perfect place to find all the help Laura needs in one go. Gape. Now she's got Laura's full attention. Sweat. But as they arrive at their destination, Laura starts to get a very bad feeling. Gulp. Her blood runs cold. You were referring to slave markets, she realizes with horror. Grunt. She confronts Irina, who cheerfully promises this is the most hassle-free way to hire staff. Girl, read the room. Clank. The scene shifts to a dark room where a muscular man is bound in heavy chains. The scarred, light-haired man looks up, his own thoughts echoing in the grim silence. I'm at a slave market? An overview explains the grim reality. In this society, the less fortunate nobility legally trade in slaves. Enslaved people are seen as mere commodities, chained and stripped of their humanity. Irina tries to sell her on the idea, explaining that magical contracts prevent slaves from escaping. Laura is not convinced. I can't do this, Laura protests. Slaves are people. She's horrified by the human rights violations, leaving Irina
utterly baffled. Pop, suddenly Damien appears, scolding Laura for sympathizing with slaves and questioning why she would call them people. Annoyed, she asks why he followed her. He coolly replies he only nags when she's alone and promptly takes charge of the situation. She reflects on how her family never employed slaves, and coming from modern Korea, she's never witnessed such cruelty firsthand. These people, commoners, foreigners, prisoners of war, are trapped with no hope of freedom unless someone buys them. A smarmy merchant greets Damien, who asks to see slaves fit for a noble lady. Laura internally calls the man a bastard. She looks around, disturbed. Am I the only one uncomfortable here? She thinks, alienated by how normal everyone is acting.
Creek. The smarmy merchant presents his finest slaves as he opens the gate to a dark, torch-lit dungeon.
Laura looks on in stunned silence, her face shadowed with horror at the scene before her. Yank. The merchant grabs a handsome, light-haired slave by the hair, boasting that he's a perfect favorite among noble ladies.
Ugh! He then points out a heavily scarred man, explaining he was a knight from a fallen kingdom.
He adds that they've cut the knight's Achilles tendons so he's not a threat, but Laura lets out a little hiccup of fear at his scary eyes.
The merchant pitches the knight as a perfect knight servant, docile but with the energy of a wild stallion. Laura's just confused. Knight servant? Loom! Damien suddenly steps in, furious at the merchant for suggesting such a thing, and questioning what kind of lady he thinks Laura is. The scarred knight watches the confrontation from his cell, his expression intense and unreadable.
I never wanted to come here, Laura says, turning to leave. Damien asks if she's sure.
But she stops, looking down in surprise as a quiet plea reaches her ears. Grab. The scarred knight has reached through the bars and grabbed her cloak, begging, "Please take me with you." She turns back to face the towering, chained man, who looks down at her with desperation. In that moment, a golden light seems to surround him, highlighting the scars on his determined face. Gosh! Laura is completely captivated, her heart skipping a beat as she stares up at him. His sparkling blue eye seems to pierce right through her. Flinch! Damien tries to pull her away, telling her to ignore the slave, but she recoils from his touch. Annoyed by the disturbance, the merchant orders the knight to his knees for speaking out of turn.
Fall! A magical force slams the knight to the ground, and Laura gasps in shock at the cruelty. The merchant chuckles, apologizing for the slave's behavior and explaining he was a volatile gladiator who's been resold multiple times. Thump! As the knight kneels in forced submission, the merchant declares that he clearly needs more training. Laura hesitates, still feeling wrong about buying people, but now deeply conflicted. She can't bring herself to leave him behind in this horrendous situation. Her mind fills with images of him being brutally punished during his so-called domestication. After a moment of silent consideration, Damien calls her name, waiting for her decision. To hell with this, she thinks, then points decisively and declares, I want him. Huh? Damien, Irina, and the merchant are all completely floored by her sudden declaration. Damien immediately suspects her intentions, imagining a steamy romance. Panicked, Laura insists he doesn't understand. She argues that a former gladiator would be an excellent bodyguard. Damien counters that he's too expensive, but she doesn't care. In her mind, she's a boss making it rain. I'm loaded, she thinks confidently. Damien sighs, trying one last time to warn her about the slave's history of trouble, but Laura has already made up her mind. And just to seal the deal, she points to the other handsome slave and announces she's buying him too.
Swish! As she turns to leave, the scarred knight watches her go, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes.
Step, step. The group walks away in silence down the stone corridor.
Laura turns to Damien and Irina, telling them she doesn't mean to disrespect their concerns. She simply asks them to be more understanding of her decision. Irina is moved, while Damien admits she's more tender-hearted than she appears. Is that a compliment? She asks. They bicker like friends, though Damien is quick to deny the title. Later, Laura also selects a woman and a young boy, two slaves the market deemed substandard. Unlike elite slaves who could earn freedom, these inferior ones were destined for a life of exploitation, forever bound by magic. She chose them because they were the most desperate for help. The merchant prepares to explain how to manage them. He presents their official documents, explaining that her signature will bind them to her via a magical contract that prevents them from causing harm. A woman demonstrates the powerful mana spell, Drop to Your Knees, forcing the scarred knight down once more. Laura grimaces, recognizing the spell. She tells the woman to help him up, and he clenches her cloak as he rises. Pop. Next, she's handed a seal for the contract. What happens if I stamp it? She asks. It's called the Seal of Death, a last resort that slaves can use to end their own lives. Terp. Back at their new home, Laura introduces herself and asks her new servants for their names. The woman is Arya and the boy is Soho, but the handsome slave says she can choose a name for him. Grab. He gently takes her hand. Smiling charmingly, he promises to take care of her in bed for the rest of his days. Not interested. Laura lays down the law, telling him to give her a real name or go back to the market. The handsome, light-haired slave looks her in the eye and calmly introduces himself as Lionel. Laura thanks him, then turns her attention to the scarred knight, asking for his name as well.
Tight. The scarred man remains silent, his head bowed as he clenches his fist.
Sensing his distress, Laura gently tells him he can answer later, assuming he must be in shock.
Damien asks why she's being so nice to him, and Lionel chimes in, agreeing that it doesn't seem fair.
Laura explains that those who have been hurt the most are the ones who need all the attention and love they can get.
Flinch. Her words hit the scarred knight like a shockwave. He was so sure she was about to punish him. Limp. He realizes she's not like his other owners, and despite his past, decides he wants to trust her one last time. Kneeling before her in a bed of spectral flowers, he finally speaks. My name is Shion.
The scene shifts to a warm golden sunset over the grand mansion.
Laura leads her new family, Damien, Arya, Soho, Lionel, and Shion, through the main hall, all of them following her lead. She instructs Damien to arrange for their needs and dinner, but he interrupts to inform her the Count wants to see her in his study.
To make matters worse, Damien adds that her brother, Lord Lyndall, is also waiting with him. Oh no, she thinks, knowing Lyndall is always looking for a fight, but wondering what her father could possibly want. Sigh. She tells Damien and Irina to take care of the new servants while she's gone.
Click, clack. As she walks down a dark hall, she wonders if they're upset about the money she spent, but quickly dismisses the thought.
It must be something important, she reasons, which means her business deal is likely going according to plan.
A tense close-up shows the Count sitting at his desk, his expression stern and unreadable. Laura enters the study, hopeful that her deal with the Count is finally paying off. Glare. Lyndall immediately confronts her, angrily demanding to know what she's done now. He furiously accuses her of bringing bed slaves into the mansion and calls her vulgar, whether she's illegitimate or not. Bed slaves, she scoffs, explaining they're her guards. A stunned Lyndall can't believe it, arguing that elite slaves are never used for guard duty. Swish, he turns desperately to his father, begging him to intervene and say something. The Count agrees with Lyndall, warning that rumors could spread, but Laura clenches her fist, declaring that she doesn't care. Bang! She slams her hand on the desk to make her point. She reminds her father that their agreement was clear. He could marry her off only if her business deal failed. Flinch, Lyndall looks shocked at the mention of her marriage, while the Count strokes his chin thoughtfully. "That's enough, Lyndall," the Count says, ordering him to leave the room. Lyndall is outraged, but his father silences him with a single word. "Now, wince." A flustered Lyndall is completely taken aback by his father's sudden command. Slam. He storms out of the room, vowing she won't get away with this. Laura just rolls her eyes, thinking he's acting like a child. Now alone with her, the Count confirms her information was correct. The Aska Empire sent a secret envoy. He demands to know how she knew. She realizes he's wondering how an uneducated girl could possess such vital intelligence, so she simply says she's been studying politics. The Count finds that hard to believe, given her history of causing trouble. She begins to worry he won't honor their deal. But then he surprises her, stating, "Nevertheless, a promise is a promise." He informs her that she will receive a portion of the profits from the successful trade deal. But, he adds, there's a catch. He can't reveal her involvement. The official trade must be conducted by another house. He declares that House Epine, whose crest is shown bound in chains, will take the lead on the trade. Clench. Though annoyed by his stubborn refusal to acknowledge her, she agrees to his terms. "Good," he says, waving his hand dismissively. "You may leave now." She turns and walks out of the study, leaving her father to his thoughts at his desk. Stepping into the hallway, she's surprised to find Damien waiting for her. Hee. She playfully teases him, asking if he was worried about her. A flustered Damien insists it's not funny. As they walk, she tells him she needs a priest to treat Shion's severed tendons. Damien calls her too generous, arguing that Shion is just a slave. She swishes around to face him, challenging his cold attitude. She unties her hair ribbon, looking confident and regal as she holds his gaze. Damien seems taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor, a faint blush on his cheeks. Ahem. He clears his throat, complimenting her classy attitude. She threatens to bring her old self back, and he quickly says, "No need." He warns her that the temple's priests might find it disgraceful to personally treat a slave. Besides, he adds, showing a dark vision of Shion, "I'm not sure if that slave deserves this level of generosity." Laura looks thoughtful, taking in his words as she considers her next move. Laura playfully teases her gray-haired butler, asking if he's jealous of the new guy getting all the attention, but then quickly says, "Nope." "Poke." She pokes his cheek, urging him to be honest, but he stiffly replies that he won't tolerate a power trip at work. Sulking. The butler, Damien, is swarmed by multiple Lauras teasing him and threatening to tattle to his father. Pout. Damien crosses his arms, his cheeks puffed out in a full-blown pout. The scene shifts to a lavish, sun-drenched room, light pouring in through the windows. A scarred man with a collar asks why she summoned him. Whoosh! Damien quickly steps in front of him, blocking his path with a defiant "you." Damien sternly reminds the scarred man of his place, telling him to show respect because she owns him now. Glare, annoyed by the testosterone, Laura orders them both to stop the hostility from her chair.
She tells the man, Shion, that they must be civil and reassures him she has no interest in lording over him.
She then announces she has summoned a priest, much to the confusion of the two men standing before her. Jolt. Shion is visibly shocked, asking, "Pardon me?" She explains with a smile that since a severed tendon can't be reattached, they'll have to rely on divine power. Shion is floored, realizing she wants to heal his legs and wondering why a noble is being so kind to him. Amidst a cascade of flowers, her simple, powerful motive is revealed. She wants to take care of her people.
She sits with a gentle smile, exuding a benevolent and almost divine aura as flower petals float around her. Shion thinks to himself that he fully expected to be treated like a toy, as most nobles would.
He dares to hope, envisioning his past self as a knight, thinking that if she can heal him, he can wield his sword again. Burst. Hope and shock explode across his face as he processes the possibility. Suddenly, a dark-haired man bursts through the doors, interrupting the moment. Laura recognizes the unwelcome guest with a weary sigh. Carlex? Surrounded by an aura of thorny roses, Carlex sneers at her for buying a bed slave and getting ready to have some fun. He stands judgmentally before the three of them, spoiling the mood completely. Laura calls out her brother for his terrible manners, reminding him he promised not to barge in. Carlex yells that the whole mansion knows she bought bed slaves, while Laura sighs that she's tired of repeating he's her guard. He points at Shion's collar, furiously demanding that he kneel and show proper respect instead of standing so arrogantly. Shion glares back, his eyes filled with cold fury. Step. Laura gets nervous, worried Shion is about to lose his temper and start a fight, so she quickly apologizes. To her surprise, Shion immediately drops to one knee in a gesture of submission. Laura watches, taken aback by his sudden deference. Looking up from the floor, Shion formally apologizes to her for offending her. Internally, Laura breathes a sigh of relief. She seriously thought he was about to clock Carlex. With her composure regained, she turns on her brother, dressing him down for disrespecting her in front of her employees. Loom, with an intimidating glow in her eyes, she sarcastically thanks him. Flinch, Carlex recoils, completely thrown off by her sudden assertiveness. He turns away, trying to save face by saying he just wants her to protect the family's reputation, but she's not buying it. She looks at him with piercing eyes, questioning why he's suddenly so concerned with her manners. In front of a family portrait she was never a part of, she asks why it matters when they don't even consider her family. As a memory of her as a lonely child appears, she flatly rejects his claims that they ever cared or that she was part of the family. He insists, his back to her, that he always cared about her. Laura faces him down, her fists clenched, ready for a fight. Burst! Carlex loses his cool and starts yelling, "That's because..." He immediately catches himself, panicking that he's raising his voice yet again. He explains that in his own twisted way, he didn't want her to fall behind the other nobles. Laura is thoroughly unimpressed, seething as she asks what kind of excuse that is. He continues his justification, reminding her that as an illegitimate daughter, she's a target for anyone looking for weakness. Carlex claims his strictness was to protect her, not to isolate her, as a painful memory of her past mistreatment is shown. Laura listens silently, her expression unreadable. He finally admits his fault, mumbling that he just didn't know how to express his true feelings.
With a cunning smirk, she dismisses his pathetic excuse with a simple, "Oh, sure," leaving him stunned and speechless.
Shocked, Laura stares with wide eyes, her mind reeling as she thinks, "What?" Carlix confronts her, demanding to know what's wrong and why she's acting so out of character.
He admits that she's helped him see things differently, realizing he acted as if her illegitimate status was entirely her fault.
Clench. Turning her back, Laura tells him to leave her alone, thinking he should have said those words to the real Laura. A dark realization sets in. The original Laura's life had already been completely ruined. Creek. A tragic flashback reveals the real Laura, dead and bloodied, surrounded by thorns. The girl who craved acceptance is long gone. Back in the present, Laura crosses her arms, annoyed by the sudden change of heart, thinking it's all so irritating. In a chibi tantrum, she rolls on the floor, frustrated that the villain is suddenly being nice and it's messing with her head. Her inner turmoil is interrupted as Shion appears at the door. She greets him while holding a cookie. Surrounded by flower petals, Shion looks on with a quiet, somber expression. Whimper. Her heart melts in a chibi fantasy as she gushes over how innocent he looks. She reassures Shion that the family's coldness isn't his fault, admitting she feels terrible that her bad reputation is affecting him. Laura promises they'll leave the mansion as soon as his legs are healed, and he looks up, stunned, acknowledging her as his mistress. Tilt. She quickly tells him to stop calling her mistress, suggesting Lady Laura is a much better alternative. With a gentle smile, she explains that the term mistress just sounds a bit too scandalous for her taste. Shion blushes, clearly flustered by her unexpected kindness and consideration. He quietly holds the pastry she gave him, lost in thought after their conversation. Limp. As he walks, he calls out her name, vowing that even if his legs never heal, he will make her wish his command. A promise surrounded by ethereal flowers. He kneels before her, clutching the pastry to his heart as he makes a solemn pledge of loyalty. Laughing, she accepts his vow and cheekily suggests he could take up gardening, a proposal he readily agrees to under the moonlight. The next day, a trio of priests arrives at the mansion to offer their blessings to Lady Laura. Now dressed in a lavish gown, Laura coolly accepts the head priest's backhanded compliment about her extravagance, telling him his provocations are useless. The priest scoffs, claiming they don't have enough holy power to waste on healing a mere slave. Snap. With a knowing smile, Laura reveals a glittering jewelry box, saying she didn't call them over empty-handed. Gasp! Ta-da! She opens the box, revealing a treasure trove of gold and jewels that leaves the priest speechless. Chuckle. With their attitudes completely changed, the priests happily follow her, proving her theory. Money talks. Creek. The scene shifts to a dusty, neglected room where sunlight streams through a grimy window. Standing barefoot in the dilapidated room, Shion greets Lady Laura as she enters. Horrified by the cobwebs and filth, Laura realizes the servants are mistreating him, adding one more reason to her list for leaving this place. Damien presents Shion to the priests, and Laura confirms he is the one in need of healing. Tilt. The head priest complains the room is too messy to summon divine power, earning an annoyed side-eye from Laura. Ta-da! But when Damien presents the treasure again, the priest's principles vanish, and he eagerly declares it's time to get to work.
Sitting on the floor, Laura points to Shion's ankles, explaining the injury is in both. He winces, clearly embarrassed.
Flinch, she gently traces the scars on his lower leg with her gloved finger.
A blushing Shion stammers her name, completely caught off guard by her directness.
Laura looks up at him with genuine curiosity, oblivious to the social faux pas she just committed.
Ahem. Damien's pointed cough makes her realize her mistake. Baring skin is a big no-no in this world.
Flush. Mortified, Shion covers his beet-red face with his hands.
With the awkward moment past, the priests begin the healing ritual, chanting as Laura watches over Shion. Flash. As a holy light glows, Laura skeptically thinks the priest seems more interested in cash than a higher calling. Whoosh! A brilliant golden light envelops Shion's legs, the sheer power of the spell surprising him. Swoosh! The light intensifies over his ankle, and he watches in amazement as the scar begins to vanish. After the light fades, Laura leans in and asks him gently, "Can you stand, Shion?" Rise. He slowly stands, his eyes wide with shock. "My legs," he whispers, "don't hurt anymore." The priests celebrate their miraculous work, while Laura dryly notes that the money grubber was actually competent. Nod. Laura graciously thanks the priests, while Shion stares at her in awe. Bow. Shion then turns and gives the priests a deep, respectful bow. As the priests continue to praise the miracle, Shion remains silent, his back turned to them. He calls out, "Mistress," and as Laura looks on, the priests dissolve into particles of dust, their job now complete. Shion blushes, speechless at her kindness. Laura looks back at him with a warm, knowing smile. She invites him to come with her, as she needs to see some people off. At the gate, the priests thank her profusely for her generosity as they prepare to leave in their carriage. But Laura sees right through them, knowing they're just greedy grifters. "No way," she thinks. "You're not pocketing my money." Shion suddenly thanks her, catching Laura completely off guard. "Fidget," he stammers, explaining he didn't get a chance to properly thank her before. Stunned, she admits to herself that she wasn't expecting any gratitude from him. She smiles, saying it feels nice, and invites him inside for cookies to celebrate. Twitch. Watching from a window, her brother Lindell clenches his fist, his eyes burning with rage. Just as they arrive inside, Irina informs her that Lord Lindell is waiting in the reception room. Great, she thinks, telling Shion their tea party will have to wait, as she orders Irina to send her brother in. Creak. Peeking into the room, she's not worried about a fight, but another concern weighs on her mind. She hopes he isn't mad about her summoning a priest, but Lindell immediately confronts her about her private meeting with their father. She coolly explains it was a business matter, sending Lindell into a rage about her making trouble. Snarl. He seethes with jealousy that their father discussed business with her and not him, but Laura sees his envy plain as day. She calmly clarifies that it was their father who initiated the business discussion, not her. Lindell is stunned speechless as she subtly threatens to tell their father about his little tantrum. Rise! He leaps to his feet, trying to intimidate her by shouting about his patience being tested. Thump. But his heart sinks as he realizes his intimidation tactics aren't working at all. He points a shaky finger, offering a weak threat,
but Laura is completely unfazed.
Scoff. She simply smirks, having effortlessly won the confrontation.
Defeated, Lyndall storms out of the room, while Laura and Irina watch. Irina asks if she's all right, noticing Laura is trembling. Hee, but she's not scared. She's cracking up, finding it hilarious that he ran away so easily. When Irina worries about retaliation, Laura waves it off, thinking another fight is the worst he can do. As the sun sets, a thought hangs in the air. Boy, was I wrong. Later at dinner, Lyndall announces that his next move is all for Laura's sake. He declares his brotherly intention to help her find the perfect suitor. Seethe. Fuming, Laura realizes he's trying to ruin her plans and decides to speak up. She reminds her father that their deal is ongoing and that forcing a failed matchmaking could damage a suitor's reputation. Pop, but Lyndall jumps in, insisting she needs a backup plan because all the good suitors are being taken. He gets in her face, mocking her situation and laughing that she'll be left with no one if she waits. As they have a silent, finery standoff, their father's voice cuts in, telling them that's enough. He declares that whether she gets engaged or not, she must be presented in the matchmaking scene. Realizing she can't fight both of them, Laura reluctantly agrees to her father's command. Lyndall grins victoriously, promising he's already cherry-picked the best candidates for her. Bring it on, she thinks, playing along with a sweet smile while preparing for war. Grit. She internally vows to crash whatever party Lyndall has planned. The scene transitions, focusing on the opulent architecture of the mansion. Ta-da! A single, sad-looking salad is presented as her meal. Loom. Irina cheerily informs a horrified Laura that the master has ordered a strict diet for her. Chomp. She realizes Lyndall's true ace up his sleeve wasn't the terrible suitors, but this dietary torture. A montage of misery begins. No snacking, only salad, and a rigorous skincare regimen. Welcome to matchmaking prep. Haggard. The brutal routine leaves her looking completely drained and exhausted. Her silent scream echoes across the estate. Lyndall, I'm gonna kill you. Chatter. At a high society party, a suitor reaches for her to get her attention. Rub. Dressed for the occasion, Laura tiredly wipes something from her cheek. Disgust. The man points out she has cream on her face, and her expression is one of pure loathing. But he just smiles, calling the look adorable. Looks like she's met suitor number 1.
Wink. Her first suitor, a smarmy blonde man, leans in with a practiced smile, telling her she's much cuter than the rumors say. She's not impressed, thinking his pickup line is cheesy as he mimes shooting a Cupid's arrow across the table. Wipe. Laura just gives him a dead-eyed stare as she dabs her mouth with a napkin, completely over this. She recalls the other losers her brother sent, who talked about wifely devotion and wanting 10 kids. Clench. She thought she'd seen the worst of it. But looking at this smug guy sipping his drink, she realizes this one definitely takes the cake. A profile introduces him as Rimpe Derman, a count's younger son, notorious for his lewd behavior. As the second son of minor nobility, his only shot at fame was marrying into a rich family, which explains his over-the-top flirting. Back in the present, she shuts him down cold. Let me stop you right there. Don't you ever touch me again. Bounce. He leans in closer, unbothered, calling her a beautiful flower he can't resist. She thinks he's completely nuts. Daran. But a dark presence. Snort. Rimpe turns into a puppy dog version of himself, begging her to pick him, but she flatly replies, the feeling is not mutual. Nope. Sighing, she explains that she's only here because her brother forced her, and that she has zero interest in marriage. He just gives her a calm. He warns her that returning home without a suitor will be tough, mentioning her family must have hired minders for her. She looks genuinely confused.
Glance. She looks over her shoulder, wondering what he means by minders, particularly since he said, minders for you, too.
Is all of this just an act? She asks. He smiles, confirming he has minders too, and offers to drop the flirtation.
Fine, she agrees, telling Shion to stand down. He silently nods in compliance.
As Shion steps back, she gives Rinpei one last warning. Remember, no touching. He promises he understands. Later in a carriage, she asks why he fakes being a troublemaker when it ruins his reputation. He just asks, "What about you?" "Don't deflect," she says, cheekily adding, "Besides, who says I'm faking?" He lets out a laugh. He explains that being a smarter younger sibling is tough, so becoming a troublemaker was his only move. From the driver's seat of the carriage, Shion tells Rinpei not to worry, acknowledging that choosing an heir is a complicated business. Jolt. Rinpei looks shocked by the comment. Laura reassures him not to give up, suggesting other options might exist. He brightens up, asking if she thinks so. She tells him to trust her, and he thanks her, feeling much better. He asks if they can be friends and use first names. She smiles and agrees, pointing out she's already been calling him Rinpei. A few days later, Laura sits in her room, planning her next move, acquiring supplies for her business, which means a chat with the treasurer. She summons Irina, ordering her to tell Dawson she wants to see him. Irina is surprised she means Treasurer Dawson. A title card introduces Dawson as the treasurer at House Epine. He was a commoner who rose to the top of his class at the Empire's most elite academy. As a man of principle, he frequently clashed with the old, spoiled Laura, who constantly demanded more money for her beauty budget. Laura confidently tells Irina to deliver the message, sure that he'll understand what it's about. But Irina returns with bad news, apologizing that Treasurer Dawson is occupied all day and can't see her. Laura asks about the next 2 days, but the answer is still no. He'll get back to her when he's free. Yeah, right. She realizes he's giving her the brush off, thinking he must have really hated her old self. She doesn't blame him for holding a grudge, but his refusal leaves her with no other choice. Burst, with a brilliant, almost mischievous smile, she declares she'll just go to him instead. Arriving at his office, she's stopped by his subordinates. She calmly states she's there to see Treasurer Dawson. When they try to tell her he's busy, she cuts them off, saying she already knows and will wait in the reception room. They have no choice but to agree. Step. As she stands by the door, Irina nervously asks if she's sure she wants to wait. "I am," Laura confirms. Quiet. Irina wonders aloud how Dawson could refuse her after she came all this way. Laura tells her to return to her duties. Blink. Laura waits patiently, her eyes closing for a moment in the silent room. Rub. Waking with a start, she realizes it's already evening. She looks up at the man standing over her and asks, "Were you really this busy, or were you just avoiding me?" Dawson, the treasurer of House Epinine, formally introduces himself and states coolly that he has, in fact, been busy. He tries to dismiss her, saying her father has already approved the business deal, but she cuts him off. That's not good enough. She tells him that just because she's forced to work from the shadows doesn't mean she'll let him trivialize her efforts. He winces, stunned by her sharp tone. Flinch. She presses him, asking what was so important he had to make her wait for days.
Then she hits him where it hurts. Had I been legitimate, would you still insult me like this?
Clench. With his back turned, he tightens his fists as she reminds him that he, too, faced discrimination for being a commoner.
Burst. Is this your way of giving back what you've received? She challenges. He whips around, exploding. Absolutely not. Hush. He immediately catches himself, covering his mouth in embarrassment at his outburst. Looking flustered, he apologizes, seemingly shocked by his own reaction.
She reflects on her past, admitting she used fancy clothes as a shield for her illegitimacy and that her demands must have offended him.
With a backdrop of blooming flowers, she offers Dawson a genuinely warm and apologetic smile. He apologizes again, but she cuts him off, suggesting they leave the past behind and get to work since they're both so busy. As the office doors swing open, she proposes they get started, and he readily agrees. At the table, she points to a list of supplies she needs for her business, leaving him stammering and completely caught off guard. She tells him to be honest, knowing he's not one to mince words. He nervously agrees to review her proposal. After looking it over, Dawson declares the items are useless expendables that would drain their finances, unknowingly walking right into her trap. Perfect, she says, adding that if they're so useless, he'll have no trouble getting them at a bargain. He's starting to see he's been played. With a cunning smile, she reveals that acquiring those cheap supplies is the entire point of her proposal. Boing! His eyes pop as he finally understands her scheme, letting out a stunned, "Pardon me?" But that's not all. She orders him to use the leftover budget to secure a 4-month lease on the currently abandoned Port Bailey. He tries to object, but she silences him, insisting he add one very specific and crucial provision to the contract. She then leans in and drops a bombshell. Very soon, Silk Road access will be blocked. She's betting the entire venture on this intel. Thump. Stunned, he asks if her information is reliable, but she admits it's not exactly information. Grin. It's a hunch, and her confident smile is enough to make Dawson absolutely terrified. Bang! He slams his hands on the desk, panicking that it's impossible to do in a day. But Laura narrates that she worked him to the bone. In a cute flashback, she reminds a frustrated Dawson that she's the one who had to put up with his ignoring her.
Loom.
She glares, daring him to disagree, and he can only stammer in response. Wah! Defeated, he runs out of the room crying that he'll do it, but hates her, while she calmly sips her tea. Later, a much more composed Dawson adjusts his glasses with a satisfied smirk. Mission accomplished. Ta-da! He proudly presents a sealed envelope, signaling his success. She asks when the goods arrive, and he informs her the merchants will teleport everything within a week. Dawson confirms the guild will grant port access, but Laura anxiously wonders if he secured the penalty clause. Pause. He hesitates for a moment, and her expression hardens as she warns him not to tell her he failed. He pushes his glasses up, proudly announcing he didn't just secure it, he negotiated the penalty to be 1,000 times the original value. 1,000 times? Laura is floored, wondering how on earth he managed to pull that off. The scene shifts to the Grand Epine estate as Dawson announces himself to her father. Her father, looking stern as ever, simply tells the treasurer to take a seat. Laura is pleased, thinking that while she wanted to see her father, it works out perfectly if he wants to talk to Dawson first. Back from her dates, a haggard Laura tells Irina they were all losers, while internally smirking that she was about to sabotage the whole deal anyway. Flutter. Her father hands Dawson an article, telling him to read about the imminent closure of the Silk Road. Her prediction came true.
And while it's bad news for the world, for her, it means one thing. No more loser suitors. Freedom. Finally. A wave of pure relief washes over her as she savors her victory.
Blurt. Wasting no time, she immediately peppers her father with questions about her departure and her share of the profits.
Ahem. She clears her throat, coyly asking if this business success means she's officially off the hook for matchmaking.
Chuckle. Her father lets out a rare, quiet laugh as he looks down at the papers on his desk.
Her eyes widen in disbelief. Did her stone-faced father actually just smile? He informs her the goods have already been secured, giving all the credit to Dawson's business acumen. Laura's face falls. She internally fumes, realizing he's telling her not to get cocky or try to claim the victory for herself. Fine, if no one else will praise her, she'll do it herself, proudly stating that she and Dawson accomplished it together. But her father shuts her down, ordering Dawson to handle the business from now on, while she stays behind the scenes. She's furious. Rise! She stands from her chair, protesting that the business can't possibly proceed without her involvement. Bow. Deciding not to ruin her good mood, she gives a graceful curtsy and resolves to just nudge Dawson from the shadows. Suddenly, a man calls out her name, Lady Laura J., and she turns to see who it is. It's Shion, looking sharp in a formal suit, offering to escort her back to her room. Step. As they walk down the hall together, a strange feeling of familiarity begins to stir within her. Huh? She stares at the back of his head, certain she's seen that specific haircut and posture before. I've seen it before, she thinks, her mind racing to place the memory. A flashback reveals the image of a small, dirty boy from long ago as a voice calls out, "My lady, it's him."
Pop, the man with gray hair, asks a startled Irina if she's okay, and she stammers that she is. Realizing the memory was Laura's, she thanks the man, calling him Damien. He bows in response, addressing her as "my lady." As they enter the room, Irina asks if her father was upset about the matchmaking. Laura clarifies they just talked business. Pause. Irina is overjoyed to hear the good news, but Laura seems hesitant. Sheepishly, Irina offers a weak congratulations. Laura looks confused as Irina explains she's happy for her, but also a little sad. Laura asks what the desserts are for, and Irina happily explains she brought them to cheer her up. Irina admits she thought her father would scold Laura, so now they can celebrate instead. Laura smiles, saying Irina knows her well. With a wink, Laura invites Irina to join her in the business, promising she won't regret it. An emotional Irina is moved by the offer. First, suddenly, two men burst in and one shouts that Lady Laura has a problem. Flinch. Unfazed, Laura calmly sips her tea and tells Dawson to go ahead and explain. Grunt. Dawson nervously explains that while transporting the goods, their wagons were attacked by demons. What? Laura is shocked, realizing this could ruin everything. She urgently asks how many wagons were hit. Tight. Dawson clenches his jaw, struggling to deliver the bad news. Dun-dun! He holds up 3 fingers, announcing they lost 3 wagon loads of merchandise. Gasp! Laura reels back in horror, thinking they lost a massive amount. She quickly corrects herself, realizing he said 3, not 30. Dawson apologizes, knowing it's still a lot. Sob. She asks how many wagons they have in total. He covers his face and cries that with only 40, it's a disaster.
"What are you talking about?" she says calmly from her chair. "It's not so bad." Dawson is stunned as she tells him he scared her, pointing out that losing only 3 wagons means his preparations were excellent. She then pivots, coolly asking if there were any casualties. Dawson reports that 6 knights were injured, with 15 others suffering minor wounds. She praises his thorough preparation for preventing further damage and tells him to take care of the wounded, leaving him completely stunned and touched. Laura then asks why this happened, noting that the region isn't known for demons. Dawson confirms this is the first reported demon sighting in that area, but sightings have been increasing near the Suneka Mountains. Damien notes the mountains border the Land of Blessing, and Dawson suspects that's where the demons originated, but they need more time to investigate. Laura falls into deep thought, her expression serious. The Land of Blessing, once a vibrant forest created by the Supreme Being, is shown in its former glory. Whoosh! But after the Supreme Being was locked away, the forest died, becoming a grotesque place known for its dark aura. Laura recalls that the temple and the Northern Grand Duchy were maintaining order there. Dawson suggests they join the investigation. Shake, no need, she says with a confident smile, deciding to let the higher-ups handle the big stuff. She decides to focus on their business, delegating the logistics to Dawson and ordering him to ensure the wounded are cared for. Burst. Dawson is overcome with emotion, vowing that he won't let her down. Okay, she says, slightly taken aback, thinking his display of loyalty is a bit much. Damien interrupts, reporting that the Helena Merchant Guild has sent a message.
And? Laura asks, turning to face him as he prepares to deliver the news. A hooded figure smirks while reading a long contract, as Damien reveals the guild wants to terminate their agreement. The mysterious hooded guildmaster looks up with a sinister, glowing-eyed grin. Thump! Laura is stunned, asking about the penalty clause, but Damien confirms they're willing to pay it. With the Lyman Kingdom now blocking the Silk Road, port access became vital for trade with the Asuka Empire. But with demons swarming the lands and teleportation being too costly, the port was their only viable and now very profitable option. Dawson doesn't get it, questioning why they'd pay 1,000 times penalty when Port Bailey is so far from the Empire. Laura ponders this, wondering why the guild would risk such a massive cost when they have other ports available. Then she asks if they've met the guildmaster. Just as she offers to meet him herself, Damien cuts in, clarifying the situation. The mysterious guildmaster wants to meet the person in charge, leaving Laura to contemplate their next move. Despite Damien's concerns about her father's orders, Laura stands firm, cloaked and ready. I am sure, she confirms. Shh. She puts a finger to her lips, silencing any further objections with a sly look. Laura gives Dawson her orders. Sell their goods and inform the Asuka Empire diplomats. Damien interjects, offering to accompany her as a guard. He stands formally, hand over his heart, insisting that she will need a guard for her journey. Laura crosses her arms, thinking Damien is a nag, but right, then openly questions if he's a bit weak to be her guard. He fires back, asking if she wants him to rat her out, and she immediately backpedals with a thumbs up, insisting he's perfect for the job. As Damien departs, promising not to fail her, Laura turns and thanks a worried-looking Dawson. She then gives Irina her next assignment, and the loyal maid replies she'll do anything. Laura's plan is simple. She needs Irina to stay in the room and pretend to be her, assuring the nervous maid she'll be back in no time. Dun. But Irina's real fear isn't danger. It's that she can't eat as much as Laura,
and will be discovered after getting stuffed to death.
Ahem. Laura reassures her that force-feeding isn't required, and a relieved Irina vows to do her best guarding the door and eating.
With her plan in motion, Laura gives a sly, confident smile. Standing on a balcony, Damien confirms she's ready, and she replies that Dawson will follow them later. He asks if she's actually thought this through, and she gives him a perfectly innocent look, asking if she was supposed to. Before she can say another word, Damien simply scoops her up into his arms. Flinch, though startled, she's not upset, calmly telling him she knew he'd find a way. He pouts, surprised she doesn't recoil, while she grins, ready for whatever's next. Leap. Hold on tight, he says, covering her mouth as they jump right off the balcony. Whoosh! As they fly through the trees, she internally panics, screaming that they were on the second floor. Aghast, having landed safely, but with a leaf in her hair, she yells that he nearly gave her a heart attack. He dryly notes that her yelling probably woke the whole mansion, and points out the leaf, prompting her to think he's nagging again. Tossle. She brushes her hair, then asks what their next move is. Damien admits he was expecting her to yell at him, since she usually hates it when he talks back. Her expression softens into a knowing, thoughtful smile. Grin. For a brief moment, Damien breaks his stoic facade with a sly, charming smile of his own. Glance. She notices his rare smile and thinks it's cute, before he announces he's hired a carriage to the teleport gate. As they walk, she finally asks the big question. Why is he helping her? He looks at her intently, replying with a question of his own. You don't remember, do you? Whoosh. He quickly changes the subject, pointing to their carriage, as she wonders what he meant, realizing her memories are incomplete. A dark vision of the real Laura appears, holding a dagger, as she wonders what truly happened to her predecessor. At the teleport station, an attendant cheerfully assumes they're a brother-sister duo traveling together. Cringe. Laura decides to play along, poking a visibly uncomfortable Damien and asking her brother if he's excited. Poofed. While Damien chokes out a yes, Laura stifles a laugh, and the attendant kindly advises they take the gates one at a time. Tight. Let's go, bro, she chirps, and Damien looks like he's about to have an aneurysm. The massive teleport gate activates, and an announcement instructs everyone to prepare for departure. Rattle. Laura is awestruck by the massive gate until the force of the teleport makes her lose her balance. Flash. As the magical energy surges, Damien swiftly catches her. He holds her close, asking if she's all right, but she can only mumble in response, making him wonder if she's sick. Her eyes pop open, wide with shock and maybe a little bit of nausea. Drag. The moment they arrive, a tiny, energized Laura starts dragging a shell-shocked Damien through the station.
She beams, declaring how much fun that was.
Gaunt. Damien, on the other hand, looks pale and about to be sick. She immediately starts teasing him, asking if her mighty guard has motion sickness, which he vehemently denies. Gawk. He begs her to stop teasing, and she happily agrees. Sometime later, Dawson rejoins them as they arrive at a massive, ornate building belonging to the Helena Merchant Guild.
Laura can't believe the size of the place, especially since it's just a branch office.
Step. Dawson comments on the guild's success, as Damien adds that their wealth makes their decision to break the contract all the more suspicious. A friendly receptionist greets them as they approach the main desk. Dawson explains their purpose, and the receptionist replies that the guildmaster is expecting them,
and offers to teleport them directly to his office. Flinch. The word teleport makes Damien visibly tense up, much to Dawson's confusion.
Laura leans in close, playfully whispering to Damien, asking if he'd rather take the stairs.
Blush. A flustered Damien turns away, telling her not to whisper.
Panicked, Laura starts to say they'll take the stairs, clearly not wanting to go through that again either. But Damien simply puts his arm around her, silently deciding for them both. Teleport it is.
A bewildered Dawson asks what's going on, clearly startled by their sudden teleportation.
Shove! Laura pushes Damien away, flustered, thinking the receptionist scared her and only just now realizing she was in his arms.
A servant announces their arrival, and a voice from behind a grand door coolly tells them to send the guests in. Laura, Dawson, and Damien stand before the doors, facing the mysterious guildmaster whose back is turned to them.
The guildmaster, a handsome man with black hair and a monocle, turns with a charming smile, welcoming them.
He gestures for them to sit as a maid serves tea while a man with red hair stands beside him.
A quick history lesson reveals the Helena Merchant Guild has been in the same family for generations, and the new guildmaster is known to be as flamboyant as his mother was. As his red-haired aide clings to him, Laura thinks the guildmaster has classic charm, but finds him strangely familiar.
Taking a sip of tea, Laura cuts straight to business, asking why he was so eager to meet her.
Grin. He smoothly deflects, asking about the tea, which only annoys Laura, who realizes he's dodging the question. He gets down to brass tacks, stating that they both know she doesn't want to terminate their agreement, especially with such a steep penalty. Laura cuts him off with a sharp look, demanding he stop beating around the bush and tell her what he really wants.
He notes that she's not what he expected, then smirks, agreeing to finally be direct.
The guildmaster's smile is sharp and calculating as he prepares to reveal his true intentions. He reveals he knows she bought up seemingly useless items that are now essential for new weapons, and Dawson realizes she had inside information. A sly, knowing smile spreads across Laura's face. She's one step ahead of him. His red-haired aide explains their proposal is about securing those items, admitting they're nervous since she holds the entire stock.
Laura quickly summarizes his dilemma. He's under pressure from the Empire and used the contract termination as a ploy to meet her. He laughs, telling her she's only halfway there, and asks what she just said.
Loom. His voice drops as he throws her own words back at her. About beating around the bush? He admits he's enjoying their banter, but confirms the Empire is involved. Laura presses further, asking why he specifically requested to meet the person in charge.
Flair. He claims it was simple curiosity, but she flares up, shutting down his, "oh, I was just curious" nonsense immediately.
The guildmaster reveals his true motive. He must investigate anyone who interferes with his business, especially when they act like they can see the future.
His aide nervously thinks the guildmaster is playing with fire by summoning a noble, but the man himself remains cool as a cucumber. Taking command, Laura calls for Dawson to bring her the contract, leaving her companion stunned by her sudden move. With the contract in hand, she declares they'll be enforcing it as written, much to the guildmaster's surprise. Shriek. Laura reminds him he tried to break the contract for no reason, so he gets what's coming to him, causing his aide to panic while the guildmaster just grins. She holds the document with a serene, triumphant smile, knowing she holds all the cards.
Bang! She slams the contract on the table, and the guildmaster finally folds, admitting he crossed a line and begging to keep the port access.
She points to the fine print, a penalty of 1,000 times the deposit for termination. She's got him dead to rights. Loom. The aide looks like he's seen a ghost, while the guildmaster maintains his calm, if slightly strained, smile. Beam. Laura leans in with a smug grin, teasingly asking if he forgot to read the fine print. Shriek. This is a scam, the aide cries out. Laura coolly reminds him it was magically notarized and tells him to butt out. The aide insists they need the port, but Laura scoffs, saying with his penalty payment, she could buy 5 more ports. Checkmate. Halt. The aide stops her, saying he just needed to confirm one thing before this all went down.
He explains they suspected the Empire was playing both sides, setting them up to fail and pay the penalty, since she had already cornered the market on the necessary goods. Laura agrees his conclusion was reasonable, but calls his move to summon and threaten her a major miscalculation. The guildmaster concedes she's right and pivots, offering to negotiate a much more favorable deal.
Now you're speaking my language, she says with a satisfied smile, ready to hear his new offer.
Slurp. Later, relaxing in a private room, Laura sips her tea, thinking that was way easier than she anticipated. The new deal is a massive win. Extended port access, guaranteed purchases at top value, higher commissions, and a non-disclosure clause. She reflects on her past life as a helpless underdog, realizing that in this new environment, she's discovering a powerful new version of herself. Deciding to let bygones be bygones, she puts her past behind her and declares it's time to head back to the mansion. Knock knock. Back at their lodgings, she calls for Damien and Dawson, ready to depart. Pop. She knocks on Damien's door, telling him to wake up, but it swings open to reveal a very steamy, very shirtless situation. A flustered, towel-clad Damien stares back at a wide-eyed Laura. Well, this is awkward. Whoa! Her inner monologue goes into overdrive as she marvels at his ripped physique, thinking it's even more impressive up close. Playing it cool, she claims she was just waking him up and says he could have mentioned he was getting ready. Push. He asks her to leave so he can change, but she just teases him, asking if he's shy, while playfully shoving him back into the room. She closes the door, muttering about his temper, just as Dawson arrives, asking if everything is okay after hearing her voice. Everything's fine, she says, brushing it off. She tells him to get ready, as it's time to finally return home. Later, as they prepare to leave, Laura stands with her arms crossed, asking an unseen person to hold her. A bewildered Damien appears, completely confused by her sudden and odd request. She explains the plan. He has to carry her out, so it looks like she's being forced to leave, all for Dawson's benefit. Grab. Fed up with her antics, Damien just grabs her, asking where on earth she learns to talk this way. With a sly grin, she leans in, cheekily asking if he thinks she's crass because she's illegitimate. He bluntly replies that she's just crass, period, which she surprisingly agrees with as he lifts her into his arms. With a serious look, he simply tells her to hold on tight. Leap! They soar through the air, and Laura thinks to herself that this thrilling jump is even more fun the second time. They land perfectly on a balcony, startling a maid who was working nearby. The young maid rushes towards them, crying out Laura's name in a panic. Sob! Laura comforts the weeping maid, who admits she missed her terribly, even though it's only been a day. Bah! As the maid cries about how scared she was, Damien quietly excuses himself to give them some privacy. The maid explains Laura's brothers,
Carlix and Lyndall kept trying to cause trouble, but Laura just brushes it off, thanking her for her loyalty. As a reward, Laura hands her a hefty pouch of money, calling it a vacation allowance. The maid is stunned by the generous gift, but Laura insists she's earned it and should visit her family. Choked with emotion, the maid can't speak, while Laura privately revels in the joy of flexing her new wealth. Clench. As the maid composes herself, Laura asks if she has considered the proposal she made earlier.
The maid's expression brightens with renewed determination, her answer clear without a word.
A serene smile graces Laura's face as she thinks, "I'm so glad." She tells the maid they'll get started after her much-deserved vacation, and the two part on a happy note.
The scene shifts to a dreamlike realm, where Laura finds herself before a mysterious figure with flowing golden hair.
The figure turns out to be a divine, long-haired man with an ethereal presence. A flashback reveals his name is Asmodea, the very being who summoned her, an ordinary office worker, from Korea to this world. Putting the pieces together, she asks him about the connection between his name and the kingdom he sent her to. He offers only a faint, mysterious smile, his face shrouded in light. Asmodea's gentle expression seems to hold a universe of secrets. He simply states that it is her fate to be there. He has her name repeated several times to confirm her identity. Desperate for answers, she begs him to tell her where she can find him again. He simply spreads his arms, bathed in a radiant, welcoming glow. She reaches for him, drawn into the brilliant, all-encompassing light. Overwhelmed, she asks if he'll finally tell her what to do, and a voice promises to be waiting for her. Caw. Suddenly, the dream darkens, and Asmodea's voice gives one final, ominous warning. Beware the red-eyed man with dark hair. Squawk! A piercing red eye flashes in the darkness, a clear vision of the new threat. Flash! Laura wakes with a gasp, calling out Asmodea's name as the dream fades away. Sitting alone in her bed, she ponders the cryptic warning about the mysterious red-eyed man. A new day begins, and a messenger informs Laura that his lordship wishes to see her, an invitation she accepts. She finds Dawson leaving the office, who greets her with a surprised, "Lady Laura." Dawson explains he was just briefing her father on her trade success and that his lordship was very surprised. He then gushes that her father commended him for his contributions, and Laura offers a tight-lipped congratulations. Boing, a flustered chibi Dawson insists he doesn't deserve the credit, as it was all her work. Laura reassures him with a smile, saying what matters is that they succeeded together as a team. Snort. She then smirks, adding that since she's leaving soon, she can just laugh off the skewed recognition, shocking Dawson. Dadan. Inspired by her attitude, Dawson passionately vows to stand by her no matter what, leaving her a bit bewildered. He then gestures her into the office, reminding her that his lordship is waiting. Inside, her father barely looks up, commenting that Dawson must be working hard on the business she's leading. Laura internally fumes, realizing he's praising Dawson just to remind her to stay in her place as a woman. Outwardly, however, she maintains a perfect, pleasant smile, hiding her true feelings. The silence stretches on, and she wonders why her father is being so quiet. He finally asks if she's found a new place to live yet, and she coolly replies, "Not yet." Her thoughts drift to her true plan, to move far away and start a new life where no one knows her name. Sensing her distance, her father abruptly dismisses her, ending the painfully awkward conversation.
Laura looks off into the distance, lost in thought after the tense meeting with her father. At a painfully awkward family dinner, her father addresses her formally as Laura J. Her stepmother chimes in, suggesting it's time for Laura's societal debut now that she's almost an adult. Clatter. Laura puts down her cutlery, flatly refusing with a simple, "No thank you." A blonde woman at the table explodes, scolding Laura for her lack of manners towards her mother, but Laura just scoffs internally. Snort. With a smirk, she sarcastically retorts that she's afraid she never had the chance to learn proper etiquette. She then flashes a sickly sweet smile, asking if she's made her point perfectly clear. Bang! Her brother Lionel slams the table, shouting her name, but their mother tells him to settle down, saying she expected this behavior. Her stepmother insists that Laura has a duty to the family and commands her to attend a tea party with her next week. Laura internally sighs, realizing her stepmother won't give up, and wonders if her father will stick to his promise. Her father remains silent, his expression unreadable as he contemplates the situation. Addressing the Countess, he reminds her he gave his word to Laura that she wouldn't have to debut, causing his wife to wince in protest. The Countess argues that first he brought an illegitimate child into the home, and now he's making her look like a cruel stepmother by blocking her debut. He tries to reason with her, but she insists that both of their reputations are on the line and that Laura must attend. To de-escalate, Laura calmly agrees to attend the tea party, stating she doesn't wish to be a source of conflict. But she adds one final firm condition, that this will be the last time. Flinch. Her stepmother is visibly stunned by Laura's bold declaration. Her father cuts in, telling his wife that's enough, and drops a bombshell. Laura will be leaving the mansion soon anyway. The stepmother and both brothers are completely shocked by the unexpected news. While the stepmother protests, the other brother unexpectedly sides with Laura, telling their father she's right. Her father silences them all, declaring the discussion over and giving Laura permission to attend the party. Chills. An icy silence falls over the dining room, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Feeling sick, Laura excuses herself from the table, unable to stomach another moment with her family. Glance. As she leaves, her brother Carlix watches her go with a complicated, thoughtful look. Step. He follows her outside, calling her name and asking if she's truly serious about leaving them. He mutters about her being an unattached noble, but she's already had enough, internally screaming for him to just leave her alone. She turns and asks why he's so surprised, telling him flatly that she has no reason to stay. Clench. He grabs her arm, desperately asking what if they created reasons for her to stay. She pulls away with a wry smile, telling her brother it's too little, too late. He's already missed his chance. Droop. Defeated, Carlix lowers his head, his last-ditch effort a complete failure. Laura walks on, wondering what's gotten into her father and Carlix, questioning if they only started to care now that she's finally leaving. But she quickly dismisses the thought, reminding herself that she isn't the real Laura, so their feelings are completely irrelevant to her. Back in her room, her maid gives her a warm and cheerful welcome. The maid asks for any news, but Laura hesitates, not wanting to relive the family drama. The memories of their constant neglect flash in her mind, causing her to toss her book aside in frustration. She lies, saying there's no news and that thinking about it gives her a headache, leaving the maid puzzled. Slump. Changing the subject, Laura asks about the maid's vacation, who beams and says it was wonderful, all thanks to her. The maid is still overwhelmed with gratitude for Laura's generosity.
Laura sits up, intrigued, as the maid asks why her recent trip might have been her last. The maid, Irina, explains her mother was very ill, but because of the money Laura gave her, she was able to pass away peacefully. Squeeze. Laura offers her condolences, but Irina just holds her hand, grateful she could afford good medicine for her mother's final days. Overcome with joy and loyalty, Irina kisses Laura's hand, declaring how happy she is to work for her. Laura, touched by her story, asks Irina about the rest of her family. Yay! Irina happily shares that she has twin younger brothers, 2 little rascals, whom she hopes to send to an academy. Laura discusses the logistics of sending them to a boarding school, agreeing to help Irina choose one when she moves. Flinch. Laura recoils in shock when Irina mentions the Philippos Academy in the north. A dark and bloody memory surfaces. The real Laura's killer is in the north, the one place she vowed to avoid at all costs. Irina explains her choice. The north has less discrimination and cheaper tuition, valuing ability over status. Laura reluctantly admits the logic makes sense, and Irina eagerly asks to continue working for her wherever she goes. Smile. Realizing this move gets her far away from her toxic family and helps Irina, Laura makes up her mind. They're going north. With a confident smile, Laura tells a stunned Irina that they're both going to the north. She sweetens the deal, offering Irina a pay raise and the chance to stay near her brothers, which brings the maid to tears. Overcome with emotion, Irina pulls Laura into a huge hug, shouting, "I love you." Chirp. Later, in a quiet, sunlit room, Laura reads a book, unaware she's being watched by a scarred, gray-haired man from the doorway. Stare. The man, Shion, continues to watch her intently as she's lost in her book. Swish. Laura shifts slightly, her face turning away from him as he remains fixated on her. Swish. She glances up sharply, catching him off guard and causing him to flinch in surprise. Close. Snapping her book shut, she addresses him directly, asking, "Shion, what's up with you?" Flinch. Laura stands and confronts him, asking what he wanted to say since she caught him staring. In a cute chibi moment, she gently encourages him to speak, while he stammers out an apology. When she asks what he was thinking, his expression darkens as he recalls his hopeless past, believing he'd be a slave forever. From her modern world perspective, Laura can't even begin to imagine the horrors of being enslaved in this universe. Deciding to lighten the mood, she changes the subject and asks Shion if he enjoys reading. He admits he used to when he was a knight, but not since becoming a slave, and Laura's heart breaks for him. In a kind gesture, she offers him the very book she was just reading. She tells him they can discover his new passions together, admitting the book is a romance novel and offering him something else if he'd prefer. He quietly refuses, saying he wants to read what she reads, his loyalty touching. Delighted, she invites him to sit and enjoy the book with some cookies. Nod. Shion blushes and agrees, leaving Laura to wonder, romance novels and cookies? Who knew? Wag. She finds him absolutely adorable when he acts like a shy little puppy, complete with imaginary wagging tail. They share a peaceful moment, enjoying tea and cookies while he becomes engrossed in his new book. The peace is shattered when Irina bursts in, dramatically scolding Laura for not telling her about the tea party. With a dark look in her eyes, Laura thinks she doesn't care since she's being forced to go, but Irina insists it's her official societal debut. Snort. A montage reveals Laura's rebellion, rejecting dresses, refusing salad for dinner, and turning down a skincare routine. This girl just wants to be left alone. "No more salad. I need the meat," she declares, leaving her maids trembling in fear of her carb-fueled wrath. Whisper. The maids look on nervously as she finally gets a piece of steak, which she eats with a defiant, nom nom. Just as she's enjoying her victory meal, the scene cuts to her getting dolled up anyway. Boing. Looks like the maids won this round. Surrounded by her team, she internally groans that she's been forced to try on 14 different dresses since the crack of dawn. She hopelessly asks if she can just throw on anything, but Irina shoots her down with a firm nonsense.
Irina reminds her this is a one-time thing, and after today, she'll never have to attend another tea party.
First impressions last forever, Irina says passionately, wanting everyone to see Laura as the most beautiful person she is. Laura is visibly moved by her maid's fierce dedication. Flare, with literal fire in her eyes, Irina declares that anything less than perfect is unacceptable. Laura can only surrender with a meek, "Yes, dear."
All glammed up, Laura and her stepmother arrive at the gates of a lavish estate for the party.
Her stepmother looks her over and delivers a classic backhanded compliment. "Today, you're not so terrible to look at." Swish. Laura decides it's better not to take the bait and keeps her mouth shut. She's absolutely fuming inside, thinking about the 6 long hours it took to achieve this look. Her stepmother gives her final instructions: watch her mouth and stick to the cover story that she's leaving the capital to recuperate. Laura sighs, already completely exhausted by the charade. 2 servants formally welcome Countess Epony and Lady Laura as they make their grand entrance. Standing amongst the flowers, Laura looks like a princess, but her bored expression says it all. They enter a stunning, gilded conservatory where the party is being held, hosted by Lady Epony's best friend. Sipping her tea, Laura already looks like she'd rather be anywhere else. To her horror, her stepmother has seated her right in the center of the main table, making her the unwilling center of attention. A woman in a green dress with a smug look on her face begins to speak. The woman makes a catty remark, and Laura coolly retorts in her head, "I wouldn't dream of it." Her stepmother launches into a fake sob story, claiming she had a complete meltdown over Laura at first, but realized the child was innocent. Smirk. With a sickeningly sweet smile, she spins a tale about how she fell in love with Laura's sparkling eyes and accepted her as family. Woof. The story is so unbelievable, Laura feels like she's hearing dog barks instead of words. Pfft. Glance. She glances over and sees 2 other ladies barely suppressing their laughter, confirming her suspicions. This is exactly why she wanted to stay home. The other ladies fawn over Countess Epine, telling Laura she should be grateful to have such a good mother. Scoff. While the Countess puts on a humble act, Laura internally scoffs, seeing right through the hypocrisy. Smirk. Sneer. She sips her tea, realizing this entire party is just a stage to subtly humiliate her while praising her stepmother. A dark memory surfaces, and she completely understands why the original Laura J. went rogue in the face of this constant torment. A woman in a teal dress reminds Laura of her debt to the Countess, but Laura gives her the silent treatment. The woman pushes, questioning Laura's sincerity, but Laura just gives a dismissive whatever and sips her tea. Laura concludes that in these high society circles, there's simply no place for an illegitimate daughter like her. She calmly tells the woman that it's all a misunderstanding. Flinch. Laura suddenly grabs her stepmother's arm with a dazzling smile, loudly declaring she was just admiring her generosity. Shove. Her stunned stepmother asks what she's doing, and Laura shoves her hand away with a polite "pardon me."
All of this is just noise to Laura. She just wants this miserable hour to be over.
Ding! A bell rings as the hostess thanks everyone for attending her humble party. Laura thinks she's finally free to go, but her stepmother, Laura J., reminds her she's new to the scene and can't just leave. Spread. With a flick of her wrist, her stepmother opens a large red fan, hiding her expression. Laura hesitantly says, sensing that this isn't over yet. Gape. She internally panics, wondering what fresh hell is coming her way now. The party moves to the garden, where the ladies admired the stunning flowers and praise the skilled gardeners. Laura tries to enjoy a quiet moment of peace with her tea, but it's not meant to last. Laughter erupts from the other ladies at the table, a sound that feels more like a threat than joy. The sharks begin to circle, asking where she lived before, and cattily suggesting it must have been a slum. Clatter. Setting her cup down, Laura braces herself, thinking, here we go. The insults fly, questioning if commoners even bathe daily, and calling them filthy, all while staring her down. Surrounded by shadowy figures with glowing red eyes, Laura feels their sharp questions and curious stares, utterly exhausted by it all. She keeps her lips sealed, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Hick. But then she lets out a small, trembling sob, and the ladies watch with cruel satisfaction. It's time for a preemptive strike. She feigns despair, wondering why they're being so cruel to her. Smirk. The mean girls are loving it, mockingly asking if she's crying and gaslighting her for making them look bad. But they have no idea who they're dealing with, a seasoned office worker who's not afraid to call them out on their prejudice. Swish. She leaps to her feet, pointing an accusatory finger as the crocodile tears start to flow. Drip. In a hilarious chibi meltdown, she throws herself on the ground, wailing, "How could you?" Sob. The women are flustered, insisting it was just a question, as Laura continues to cry that she can't contain her tears. Bawl. She creates a massive scene, her loud crying capturing the attention of everyone at the party. Mumble, murmur. The hostess and stepmother rush over as the hostess asks what's wrong. Glance, peeking through her fingers, Laura sees she has a full audience and thinks, nice, her plan is working perfectly. The Countess clutches her throbbing head as the other ladies try to downplay the situation, calling Laura's outburst embarrassing. When the hostess asks if their claims are true, Laura, still on the floor, confirms everything. Trickle. Tears streaming, she tells everyone how they called commoners filthy, twisting their words for maximum impact. Raise. As one of the girls tries to defend herself, the hostess silences her with a sharp enough. The hostess scolds the young ladies, expressing her deep disappointment in their lack of social graces. Laura lays it on even thicker, apologizing for ruining the mood and showing up without knowing her place. Sparkle, shine. She puts on a brilliant performance, looking like the most pitiful and wronged person in the world. Twitch. The hostess's eye twitches with barely concealed annoyance as she takes responsibility and tells Laura not to cry. With that, she helps Laura up and abruptly ends the party. This drama is officially over. Smirk. As she's being led away, Laura wipes a fake tear and reveals a victorious, cunning smirk. Take that, she thinks, savoring her perfectly executed revenge.
Clip, clop. Later, their carriage makes its way down a quiet forest path. Sob, sniffle. Inside, Laura keeps up her act, while her stepmother watches her with a look of pure disdain. Ha! Her stepmother sighs, asking Laura J. if the theatrics were truly necessary. But Laura just plays dumb.
Point. The Countess points her fan directly at Laura's face, her eyes narrowed. I know it was all an act.
Giggle, Laura casually asks if her little stunt wasn't better than actually starting a fight with them.
Desk. The Countess chides her for crying like a toddler, but Laura says she just doesn't understand.
With a sharp look, she asks what kind of clever approach her stepmother expects an illegitimate child to come up with.
When her stepmother starts to argue, Laura cuts her off, saying she doesn't want to hear it. She did what was asked.
Rattle, clunk. Staring out the window, she thinks that if she were planning to stay, her methods would have been different. But since she's leaving soon, she's not interested in complicated social games and simply hates hassles. The carriage rolls on, leaving the massive estate and its petty dramas in the dust.